Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. We are coming to you virtually from Seattle, the Pacific Northwest, and again today from the Great White North in Saskatchewan, Regina. If you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, this right here is the podcast for you. I like to say it's a podcast of record. This is where street smarts and book smarts, they collide. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Weedman. My co-host today is Phil Simchich up in Canada. Welcome, Phil. Our guest today is Jeremy Baker from JTB Marketing. Jeremy Baker has been helping people with their marketing efforts since 2012, when he originally started his digital marketing agency as a side hustle. We're going to want to hear about that. In those many years, Jeremy has witnessed several shifts in the digital marketing landscape and loves the challenge of helping customers keep on top of ever-evolving world of marketing in this digital attention span economy. He currently resides in Indianola. Well, I'll tell you where that is, in North Kitsap with his wife and two sons. Welcome, Jeremy. It's great to have you. We'll be talking with you in just a minute. Everyone, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We're iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, YouTube. Phil, I tell them all the time, we are ubiquitous. We come to you from about a dozen cities, including Atlanta, Boston, Boca Raton, Charleston. Now, listen, before we bring on Jeremy, hello there, Phil.
Hello, Dan. How are you?
I am doing great. I'm really excited to have Jeremy on today because you and I have been talking quite a bit lately off the podcast about digital marketing and my experience with LinkedIn Learning over the last, now it's something like 4 years or so, has propelled me into thinking of my own online content, my own online courses. I'm busy working on trying to get that all evolved. I have to tell you, it's fun. It's fun to try to figure out new ways to create content and put it out there. Heck, just like this podcast. So I want to ask you before we went to Jeremy, what are some of the things that SME Wealth Builder, also known as Phil Simchich, what are some of the things that you're looking at in your business model with digital marketing?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So it's really interesting to see how LinkedIn Learning has given you a platform, and LinkedIn does the marketing, but you're able to monetize from that. So I'm really excited to hear the advice that Jeremy's got for all of us, including myself selfishly, but definitely for everybody listening who's operating a business, because there's such a huge opportunity with marketing, and it's definitely overwhelming. So we are looking forward to an expert's opinion where to put our stuff. What I'm working on right now is expanding my global coaching community, where I work with business consultants and advisors who work specifically with small and medium privately held businesses. And so and you're a part of this, as you know, we've got a global coaching program, and I want to strengthen that community and then also add in online courses so that people can tap into, okay, I've got a proposal question, or I'm going into a meeting, or I'm meeting a prospect, or I want to know how to read the financial statements and things like that, so that we can increase their skills and really help them provide more value to their clients. And so, like you said, creating content is fun, but making people aware of it and getting them to engage with it, that's where we need Jeremy's help.
Well, and that's a great segue, Phil, to bring in Jeremy. First of all, Jeremy, welcome to the show. Phil and I are selfishly looking forward to asking you a whole bunch of questions. But it brings it was funny in your bio, you mentioned you started it as a side hustle. There's a lot of folks who've started side hustles here. It feels like over the last couple of years that side hustles really become important because we are in an age of digital marketing. What I'd like to ask you right off the gates is talk to us a little bit about where you see the power of digital marketing emerging and evolving.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for having me on. That's a good question, and it's kind of an interesting segue into this whole topic of digital marketing and how it's evolved. And, what I have seen, what seems like what's really working right now is a consolidation of the message. So it's not just, a lot of times people think, well, I have all of this great knowledge and I want to share all of that knowledge. Well, that's great. You can do that with blog posts and other mediums. But what I really find interesting and challenging is consolidating that message and finding a different way to put it in context to perhaps a different audience segment that you never really thought about before by doing some research. So that's kind of been my big pivot, is getting people to think a bit differently about how they craft their message and who they send it to, who they broadcast it to.
You just mentioned a couple of interesting points that I think most people don't actually consider. One is researching. And then based on what you're finding from that researching, selecting a target, maybe a new one, maybe the existing, and then crafting the message. What I find is that people will just get bombarded or with some idea of the week, or hear something from somebody and off they chase SEO, or off they chase Facebook ads. And they seem very tactical with no overarching strategy. So can you talk about how most businesses would benefit and need that overarching marketing strategy, which is tied right in there with their business strategy?
Yeah. So what I would say about that is, there's a lot of different ways you can kind of look and see, industry competitors, other influencers out there that are doing something similar to, kind of the message that you want to get out. One of the things I use is I go into Google, but I specifically go into Google Images because, anyone that has, spent enough time to make a graphic about their message, typically I find that's one of the easiest ways to get through a lot of different competitive sources, so you can get some competitive analysis there. But what it does is it kind of puts things into a different context, because you can see what people are looking for, because I believe that marketing is really about crafting the right message to the right audience and getting that attention, which is so much, more difficult. Like, it seems like every year we're just more and more bombarded with, text messages and Facebook alerts and, all of this media coming at us all the time. It's increasingly difficult even just to get, your expert knowledge out there into the world and get the attention, right? And get the response that you're looking for as a business owner.
You and Jeremy, you just brought up a word, and how you finished made me think of all of this together. The word influencer, and that has taken a whole new connotation lately. I mean, the word to influence has been around obviously forever, and we all want to influence, but it seems like in a heavily digital world, and I'm thinking Instagram, I'm thinking Twitter, I'm Facebook, all of those, we are hearing of people who are influencers in different industries. It could be business, it could be sports, it could be a whole bunch of different things. My question is, how do these influencers tend not to be like journalists, like we've thought of in the past. How does one become an influencer, and should we be influenced by them? And I guess part 3 is, how do we become influencers?
Okay, so the way that I'm looking at this is, people generally, and this is kind of what I found with my clients is, I used to talk to them about, hey, I can help you become the authority in your industry, right? And some of them kind of got a little bit shy about that, because authority is a really big word. And, that a lot of people, they get intimidated with, I don't want to say that I'm an expert. I don't want to, I'd like to showcase my expertise in a way, but really what it comes down, when you talk about being an influencer, when you are able to get the attention, really what it comes down to is the ability for you as an entrepreneur to truly want to be an advocate for your prospect's success, right? So that's what, in my mind, that's what it means to be an expert and an influencer, is to be an educator and advocate for your prospect success, and just want to go out there and help people with, their specific problem with your specific solution to that one problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and that makes it a lot easier, because then we're not selling, we're helping, right? We're helping our prospects, or we're helping our clients to succeed. I just want to go back to something you said earlier, crafting the right message for the right audience, and combine that with research. How does 10-year-old business to business, might have 100 employees, 10, 15, 20 million in revenue, how do they focus on the right audience? How do they delve that right audience when they're so used to just picking up the phone or responding to emails to sell?
Yeah. So, I've never worked with a company that big. It's interesting that you mentioned that, though, because this was like a colleague of mine that is in a firm with a whole bunch of consultants. Well, it's not enough just to say I'm a consultant, I'm a business consultant, right? There's 100 different things you could be, 100 different specialties. Some people, and even within those are strengths and weaknesses that, each one has for a different client's sector, right? So what I would say in that instance is, have someone interview each individual person that's important in that organization that helps people in a certain way, even just a 30-minute interview, and getting it transcribed, and then having them, turn the questions into a headline, and do some editing, and then come up with a little book, or like a little ebook, or, attach it to their bio section on the website. But that kind of stuff can really go out there, because then they can, the company can actually go and promote each one of those topics individually. So that's what I mean about breaking things up and, micro focusing and really consolidating that message.
So Jeremy, let's take that into what we're doing right now. We're doing a podcast. And one of the things that intrigued me in talking with you before and wanting me to invite you to be our guest was the thoughts that you have on people who do podcasts, and not necessarily the host, the podcast itself, but people who are guests who have been interviewed on podcasts, because it is actually a fantastic opportunity to spread that message. They're being interviewed, and now they have this all of this information. Where are people missing the boat who have been guests on podcasts in maximizing and leveraging that interview?
Yeah, so that's really where I saw a lost opportunity. Existing content. People put out a blog post and they say, well, they told me I'm supposed to put out a blog post, right? So that's what I did. Or, I got invited onto this podcast. I think it comes down to, what is the motivation behind your guest going on to the podcast? Are they simply just, are they on there to just give some helpful information, and they're not really looking for any business or more, expert status? That's great. For those that are taking the time to go on to your podcast or any podcast, and they're hoping to get some more referrals from it, possibly some business from it, I believe that there's some wasted opportunity there if it's only the podcast, right? You only get so many people that will sit through the entire episode. Most people kind of check it out. Most podcasts now are kind of broken up into segments. They're put on YouTube or Facebook. And there's, that whole kind of fragmentation is important to get the message out in a broader perspective to more audiences and get that attention. But really what I find is most important is to get the interview transcribed, because once it's transcribed and they can look at it and then go, whoa, wow, I said that. There's a better way to say it, of course, because we're just talking, right? I mean, there's a little difference. There's a big difference between talking and writing. So then they can look at it. They can say, wow, okay, that's a great question. I can turn that into a headline. I can reword this a little different. And then I want to just take this section of what we talked about and then make a little book about it, right? And so there's some great tools out there and resources to use now. So the technology barrier has really been lifted just even in the last 5 years, as far as all the new fancy tools that are out there that people can use to put these together.
Phil, I've been copiously writing notes. I think I can see you in the background doing the same. Jeremy, you've already given us a ton of information.
Yeah,
that is
I'm giving away. I'm giving away the whole kit and caboodle here. So
yeah, well, good, because then maybe people will call you and we'll work on that. But we got to do work on something else first. We've got to pay our own bills. So please hang on for a second, because we're going to take a short break to hear from today's spotlight sponsors. And when we come back with our guest, Jeremy Baker, for our Hot or Not section of the show, we're going to ask Jeremy what he thinks about ClickFunnels marketing. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank.
Would you like to grow your business, increase revenues, and raise profits? Would more financing from your banker help you grow? Who is guiding your succession plan? Would you like more control over your business so you can sleep better at night? SME Business Wealth Builder works with business leaders and owners like you to help them grow their business and build their business wealth. For more information and to check out free resources, go to smewealthbuilder.com.
All right, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm Phil Simchich, and our guest today is super marketing guru Jeremy Baker. And for our next segment, Hot or Not.
Jeremy, this is the point where Phil and I are going to pepper you with questions about business, about life, about marketing. Who knows? We may even throw in some things about camping and dogs and your wife. But we'll make you wait for that. At the end, you'll tell us whether it's hot or not, and why or why not, and you'll win absolutely nothing. But we hope you have fun. You heard what the first one is: hot or not. These things seem to be ubiquitous themselves. ClickFunnels marketing.
If it's hot or not, I will say hot. Although I think there's some other options, but sure, we'll go with hot on that one.
Oh, what are the other options? Well, first of all, you know what? Because some people listening or watching may go, what is ClickFunnels marketing? Do a quick explanation of that, and then tell us what some of the other options are.
As a tool to automate and to consolidate, all of the tools into one platform, like HubSpot, ClickFunnels, they're actually great tools. If you know how to use the tool, they can be kind of complicated. I do think that people should be enlisting, the help of a marketer to really get the whole system set up. But what I've been using that I highly recommend is a company called High Level. Amazing CRM capabilities, right up there with HubSpot, which has been around for years. Anyway, I'm having great fun playing around with it and learning it. But it's Silicon Valley based, so they've got the backing. Easy integration with Outlook and Google and Facebook, and it's just amazing. It's push button ease. So as a tool, if you're an entrepreneur looking for like a one platform type solution, I highly recommend High Level.
ClickFunnels marketing, hot or not?
ClickFunnels marketing, hot. Yeah,
and so
great way to really find out what your audience wants.
And can you give us a short description on that, please?
Great way to find out what your audience wants.
I'm actually a little bit. What is ClickFunnels marketing?
Yeah, so for instance, if someone is going through this process of creating an ebook, right, and you want to give that away for free, but in exchange, you would like some information about who is downloading it, that's a perfect opportunity to be able to ask some questions and really get a good sense for, what your audience is actually looking you to deliver, right? So that's a perfect way to do it. Is just poll them.
And
find out. So, yeah.
And so would this also be an example if I've got some quiz questions on my site and someone says they're brand new business owner, they might get this ebook for startups. Or if somebody's looking for succession planning and selling their business at the other extreme, they would get this ebook, and just through those questions, we can then target and segment that message. Is that?
Yeah, sure. You can send different ebooks, but you can also send them to a separate page. So for instance, you can go through like on mine, it's, do you have a current website? Now, most people do, but if they don't, okay, great. Here's the offer for you. Send them to a page that says, here's our website offer. Here's our free website offer. How does it work, right? So what's really nice about the quiz funnels is you can tailor your message that specifically relates to the answer to their question.
Cool.
Well,
awesome. Thank you.
That's fascinating. I think I've probably done the quiz funneling on the consumer side and not even known it. So now I have something to do some more work on. We're going to switch the hot or not topic just a little bit here. I know from your bio, I don't know if I read this part of it, but I know from your background that you like to do some camping. So hot or not, Jeremy, glamping.
I'm going to say hot. I like my, we got a little travel trailer and we just love cruising around, and even my wife, kind of bougie hotel, used to those 5-star resort experiences, which are great. We still do those. We love them. But even when we're there at the resorts, it's like, that time we were out there by the winery, just kind of hanging out, sipping wine, watching the sunset outside, and our little camping trailer. That's great too. So yeah, I think there's, I'm going to call that one hot.
Okay.
So where are some of your favorite glamping spots?
We like Harvest Hosts. Those are typically wineries and breweries where you can stay for a night for free. And, the expectation is you go and buy a bottle of wine or some cheese and crackers. But some of the nicest places that we've stayed have been, because we're by ourselves oftentimes. And these are more remote areas that are very quiet. And so, yeah, we stay in state parks and all kinds of other stuff called boondocking. Go out there in the middle of nowhere and just kind of it's just enjoy outside and being in nature and that whole, and then also have a nice place to, you're taking your own bed with you, right? So that's always really nice. You don't have to set up your tent and put out the sleeping bag and the mat and all that stuff. I'm kind of done with that.
So this is a great time to introduce a little bit who your wife is, Jackie Woodbaker. Jackie has been a guest on our show twice. She runs her own business, which is different than yours. So you are dual entrepreneurs, but unlike like Barb and I, we do the same thing. You do two different things. So hot or not? And this could be a plead the fifth almost to a case, so it might be a combo. Hot or not, two entrepreneurs in the same household.
So far, it's working out great. I will say that it's important to have your own separate spaces. So flexibility of schedule is definitely, one of the best parts of being an entrepreneur. We all know that. No boss telling you have to, your lunch break ends in 5 minutes, that kind of thing. But yes, when you're working from home, it's very important to have your own separate space and your own separate time.
So let me ask you, and I think that's incredibly insightful and true. I'm curious though, again, just knowing how much Barb and I end up talking about a shared work, how challenging is that, or how fun is it maybe that you have two different kind of areas of expertise of what you're doing? They're different. How is that more fun than not?
What I find interesting about that, as it relates to my wife and her business, is that there is an intersection. There, whatever business that you're in, first and foremost, your sales and marketing. Almost any business, unless you're talking about a commodity, There's certain exceptions, but most businesses, especially entrepreneurs, they go out there and they offer their product or their service, but it ain't going to go very far unless you know how to market. And sales is obviously a big part of that. So I think that we work together as a team really well because Jackie has a real ability to kind of warm people up, and she's better on the sales end of things. She gift to gab, right? That's kind of important in sales, and also listening. So she can do the sales part. I can do some marketing stuff to help her out. And so in that aspect, I think we work really well together as a team.
So I don't have a team in my business, so I'm going to shift gears a little bit here. And I'm just thinking, based on your advice so far, which there's been lots of all the marketing mistakes I've made and how expensive some of those are. So one of them was prolific content creation. That was a piece of advice I took, but without a clear message to a clear target. So is prolific content creation by itself hot or not?
I'd say it's a good start. So when you talk about prolific content generation, if you're just talking about, hey, I've got some great information to share, not quite sure who wants to listen to it, but I'm going to jot it down and start writing, maybe make a blog post out of it. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. I'll call that hot. I'll call it hotter when you actually get it refined, and then find that right marketing or that new segment of an audience that really resonates with that message, that condensed version of the message.
Well, Jeremy, that's very smart, because I know I've worked with folks in the past, just getting them to write anything sometimes, it was hard. So I think it's easier to maybe have somebody who's doing too much or not, a ton of it, and getting them focused rather than not doing hardly anything. Before we hit our next break, I want to talk about something that you're doing. And it dovetails with something we spoke about in the first segment, and that's the Podcast Maximizer. You are actually putting together a program for entrepreneurs that have been guests on the show. And so hopefully all of our guests who are still listening to us at some point, can you talk a little bit about your Podcast Maximizer?
Yeah, so that was a product that was born out of my previous experience getting my audio and my interviews with my past clients transcribed, and very interesting experience to go through that. And really what I came out of it was that, that's great that I helped all of these people, my past clients get their message out there and go through that transcription and editing and revising and all that. But wow, think about all of the guests that have been on podcast episodes that are just kind of sitting out there. There could be a wealth of information and knowledge in those, but entrepreneurs oftentimes they just don't know what else to do with it. So that's where I created this Podcast Maximizer product, because in my own business, my pivot's been more towards assets and products versus, trying to kind of just be everything to anyone that asks me for marketing help, right? So that's kind of an agency trap that I got myself into, and other marketing agencies have kind of got themselves into that. Well, sure, I can help you with that. I can help this person with this thing. I can help that person with that thing. What I'm really trying to do is consolidate my own marketing and really create boundaries around who I help, what problems I solve, and how I solve them. So that's where Podcast Maximizer as a product came out. And it's basically just taking, their podcast episodes, getting it transcribed, and then pulling out the good parts of it that really can be turned into an info piece or an ebook or a flip book.
Very good. Well, we have, I can't believe how fast time's going. We have to hit our second break. We're going to take that short break to hear from our sponsors. And when we come back with Jeremy Baker for our famous Plead the Fifth section of the show, we are actually going to put him on the hot spot with his wife, Jackie. He's not going to want to miss this. Neither will you. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank.
Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors: Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, Kitsap Sun Newspaper, BC Fitness Studio, and the Upstart Group. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm co-host Phil Simchich, and our guest today is Jeremy Baker. And for our next segment, Plead the Fifth.
All right, Jeremy, this is where we're going to continue to pepper you with questions. We're going to turn up the heat a little bit, though. We're going to ask you to plead the fifth only once, and maybe you'll never plead the fifth. Maybe you won't fair catch anything. We hope that you'll play along. We're going to have some fun. And I mentioned Jackie again because I know she's told me she's going to be watching, so she might be in another part of the house watching. But I'm going to ask you this: if we were to put Jackie on the hot spot, what would she say is the one area that you could improve most upon in being an entrepreneur?
Great question. I would say that she's going to want me to talk more and be more of a front-facing salesperson and people person than sometimes I prefer to be. I'm a bit more of an introvert, and sometimes that can be, it's okay if the marketing you can be a marketer and an introvert, but when it actually comes to talking with clients and getting them to, kind of know, like, and trust you, having that, that front-facing, jovial type of affable character is also very important. And sometimes I probably could do a better job with that.
All right.
Fair enough.
We could do this like a game show. I'm going to text Jackie and say if she liked it. No, I'm just kidding. Phil, what do you got?
This will be easier. What are the biggest or most common mistakes that you're seeing small businesses make in the areas of digital marketing?
The biggest mistake, I would say, is not tracking their conversions.
Ooh.
And not having a remarketing pixel specifically from Facebook on their website.
What is that?
$20 a day, for $20 a day, it's amazing what type of data and what kind of increased conversions you can get on your website. So there's really no reason that entrepreneurs shouldn't be having that and looking at their analytics data and tweaking it as they go along.
So then they're not learning from what they're investing in. They're not learning from what's happening or isn't happening.
Exactly.
I want to do a follow-up on that, Phil. It's a really great question and a terrific answer. It's interesting how much, as we dive into more digital world period, how much more analytics and data we have. And I'm even just thinking of my own golf game. I've got a launch monitor that can tell me, my launch angle and my ball speed and all of that. And I can use that for different purposes. And every businesses have that same opportunity. I'm watching them, whether it's manufacturing or whatever. I just wonder, though, that this is a big potential miss, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially small businesses, might say, oh, I don't even know how to gather all that. I don't even know what it means when I see it. I would actually think that you probably need people need experts in marketing. It's no longer just throw stuff out there and hope it sticks. Everybody needs an expert in this, because it can be, not only can it be a little bit complex, but it's incredibly valuable. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anyone that's paying money for traffic to get to their website, first of all, you got to know what your conversion rate is, your average conversion rate on your website. I mean, typically it's like 2-3% is average. If you can get 10%, that's great. So you want that to increase. The only way that you know how to increase it is to find out who's searching, how they're finding you, what they're clicking on, and then grow from there and add to it. Otherwise you're not going to know. and you're leaving money on the table.
So speaking of regular content creation that's probably leaving money on the table, are newsletters dead, or what's the most effective regular way to communicate with your target audience with a specific message?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think newsletters are dead. They've been around forever. I think they're going to be around forevermore. Open rates, of course, continue to decline. People are bombarded with messages. So, if you got a list of 1,000, you're used to 100 people looking at it, it's probably going to decline. But does that mean it's not worth it? Absolutely not, because it's all depends on what your actual client value is. If you got one client or recurring client as a result of checking out your message and it happens to resonate with them, why not do it, right? Especially when they're lined up and really scheduled. I mean, I would say people should probably spend some time and get at least 4 or 5 of them up in a row and get them scheduled and ready to go out, so you don't have to think about it and write every week or every month, whatever it is.
And so what are some tips or advice you have for people to improve their newsletters? Is there an ideal length, frequency, topics?
Yeah. So one of the things you can do is, on a more personal level, is just ask them to whitelist it and put it in your primary tab, because obviously, there's a lot of Gmail addresses out there. There's a lot of email filters, and whenever it comes from a bulk sender, it's going to, until they actually drag it into the primary tab or whitelist it, it's going to continue to end up in, the promotions tab or their junk folder, which is obviously, decreases your open rate. So if you've got enough of a relationship, you can send each individual. I know that sounds like a lot, or even just break it up into 10. So I'm going to send this 10, I'm going to send that 10. Ask them, hey, would you mind putting mine in the primary tab? Or, because we know it ends up in the junk. We've got some really good information for you. We'd appreciate it. Why not?
So that brings up a thought, and we're gonna have to have. I think we're gonna have to schedule Jeremy for a part 2 so he can tie Jackie on number of times shown, because I got more questions. What about things like, I'm seeing Instagram, TikTok, these other areas where it seems like people who are in an influencers are gaining more gravity, because people are willing to watch a 30-second, video or images or things like that. Where is Instagram? And I haven't even gone into TikTok. Is that a business? Is there a business platform for that?
I think it's, we have to remember that the medium is not the marketing, right? So what I suggest, I like to keep things simple. Of course, there's, you want to maximize all the mediums you possibly can as you grow. But, when you're starting out, you want to focus on a medium. There's advantages and disadvantages to all of these platforms. TikTok's got a young audience, right? They're just, if you're marketing to teenagers, you got to use TikTok, obviously, right? If you're marketing to more professional, older, consultants, or, the more professional class, is probably the demographic is between 40 and 60, something like that. You got to know your demographics. Then, LinkedIn, Facebook. If you're going after more, direct B2B type stuff with spas and other influencers, you want to use Instagram, and you want to tag them, because every time you tag them on Instagram, they see that you tagged them. And you can't do that on Facebook. So Facebook's pay to play. You can get a lot of great information from the Facebook platform, especially the ad platform. It's cheap. Oftentimes you can get clicks for 50 cents, even less. So why not? For $20 a day, it's amazing what kind of traffic you can get. So I guess it just depends on, what your market demographic is and what you want to focus on.
Awesome. Well, lots of really fantastic advice today, Jeremy, and I definitely agree, Dan. Looking forward to part 2. So, Jeremy, thanks so much for being a guest here on the Shrimp Tank. For our listeners that want to get in touch with you and learn more about your company and how you can help them grow and make more money, how can they get more information?
Well, if you want to check out the Podcast Maximizer program, that's podcastmaximizer.co. My website, where you can also get a book. I've got my own little ebook that I created. That's just on my main website, jtbmarketingsolutions.com.
Awesome. Everyone, make sure you check out all the replays on shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle and wherever you get your podcasts, such as iHeart, Apple, Google, Spotify, or Stitcher. And please follow us on our show's social media pages on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Well, this was a ton of fun. Jeremy, many thanks to you. It was a great show, and I hope people get great value from it. Phil, as always, good to see you, and we will see you again next month. Everybody else, please join us every Wednesday at noon right here on our Facebook page. You can live stream us. You can catch all of the past events as well. Our next show will be Wednesday, June the 22nd. Our guest will be Hannah Smolinski with Clara CFO Group. My co-host for that show will be Michelle Baumberger. In the meantime, please be safe, be well, and be prosperous, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.